Well, we all knew the end was near, but both the club and coach have officially declared it is all but over after an 11-year stint.
It was time. It was time for a change. It was a time for a refresh of our program.
I don't know how shocked everyone is, to be honest. There's been a fair bit of tension in the last couple of years, in particular the last few weeks. So I'm sure everyone will be feeling different. There's 8 or 9 premiership players. There's guys who've just been drafted. There's guys who...
It was the day that most West Coast and AFL fans thought was incoming. After 242 games, 2 grand finals and a premiership in 2018 as Eagles coach, Adam Simpson and the club parted ways. In reality, Simpson was always going to be exited after the year, as revealed later on in the day, when it was reported the night before Simpson and CEO Don Pike had discussions around the future. Simo asked if he was a part of those future plans and was told no. Therefore, there was no point continuing on in what had been a torturous last few games, with the pressure reaching boiling point. The departure was swift, a little tense, and echoed a sense of sadness from one of just 3 West Coast premiership coaches. He acknowledged everyone who had helped him, including his family, players and staff, but did leave a clear indication of his love of football, and something tells me this won't be the last time we see Adam Simpson at an AFL club. And he gave one last whack out too. The bitterness between him and the West Coast Eagles towards the West Australian saw this happen.
Is there a moment that made you realise that you feel like it's time to move on?
Probably your 300th article. Woodcock. No, not really. It's what, and you guys can be cruel sometimes, really. I mean, you got to keep that in check, because we're human and we have families. So you want more access to our players, treat them with a bit more respect. Would be a good start. But you got to do your job.
Sports reporter Mitchell Woodcock was the main target here, but the discussion exploded the following day. The West Australian is known for its large array of mocking front pages, many of which are funny, but probably cross a line. So as a Victorian, it was a surprise that people were surprised when this front page dropped. It shows Simpson's last 65 games in charge and puts a big L or W for the result of each match. There are just 8 W's and 57 L's. But perhaps the most disrespectful part of it, and the most intriguing, is the See Ya Simo written headline. I don't know how far back this cover was planned, but from the outside, it clearly looks like a bit of revenge for Simpson's mini outburst at Woodcock. Now, Woodcock himself has no part in the cover and is just a reporter, not an editor, but the paper will protect its own. Now, whether you think Simpson calling him out was wrong or right, it's up to you, but he did humiliate him in front of the nation. Again, you can say Woodcock may have done the same thing to Simpson over a longer period of time. On the front page, there is no mention of his grand final appearances, his 122 wins as coach, or his premiership. The surprise people felt for the cover spilled over into anger as the day developed. Disrespectful, over the line, disgusting, wrong. All the types of words used to describe the West Australians' coverage. The reality is, not much will come of it. There is no punishment for them, no matter how much wrong they have done, because they are the biggest newspaper, and all they want is people buying it or looking at it online. It's why they go with the crazy headlines and front pages. It gets everyone sucked in and talking about the newspaper. This was no exception. In fact, Simpson probably got sucked in by clipping Woodcock in his way out and gave the paper the perfect opportunity to whack him back. Unless no one in Western Australia gets the paper, this will continue on, and it might have lasting impacts on the West Coast Eagles Football Club. But now the Eagles enter a new era. Harley Reid is the face of it and needs a few more players around him. You would think Dean Cox is the front runner for the job right now, although Sydney don't want to lose him, and other former West Coast players in Ashley Hansen and Jamie Graham will be on the list. Whoever gets the job will have a tough initial run, you would think, but West Coast are a hugely powerful and wealthy club. Even in this 60-game stretch, with a win roughly every 10 games, they still get 50,000 fans coming to Optus Oval and can gather 100,000 members. The support will be there, as will the influx of new talent through the draft and trade period, most likely with Liam Baker. The movement of Simpson also puts the focus on other coaches in a similar position. Once you reach the 10-year mark, if you make it that far, your time, history says, is coming to an end. Not necessarily in the AFL, but at the club you are at. With Tasmania looming large in the not too distant future, we might have a significant changeover in coaching. You would think the Tassie appointment would be decided upon in a couple years' time, so no doubt the rumours around Chris Scott, John Longmire, Chris Fagan and Nathan Buckley will be due shortly. They are just a few names of the senior football people that the club would be crazy not to contact for a coaching or administration role. For the big four coaches, in terms of their length of tenure, two of them are clearly not ultra safe. Ken Hinkley will be out from Port Adelaide either this year or next year. The Josh Carr succession plan is a real thing, and it's why he didn't go for the Richmond job opening last off-season. Like Simpson, it's just a matter of time for Hinkley. Feels like a good portion of Port fans would prefer the switchover sooner rather than later, but either way, the power will be in a new era. Rosie and Butters as the two new leaders, and Hinkley, Boak, Dixon leaving or retiring this year or next. It's a clear natural progression of football. Now Chris Scott and John Longmire can probably stay as long as they want, such is their talent for coaching and setting up a successful football program. But maybe not so much for the fourth member of the group in Luke Beveridge. Port Adelaide's arrangement seems clear and obvious, but who knows for the Western Bulldogs? Their list is in between. It's full of senior players who are the current leaders, but also a wave of younger players who can't yet consistently impact every week. It's hard to see a succession plan of a future identity beyond Bonampelli and Beveridge, who have been tied at the hip since day one. Don't think the captain doesn't have a significant impact on who coaches. If he wasn't a fan of Beveridge, he would have been out a long time ago. Despite this, 2025 might be the last dance for this Bulldog era. Beveridge is out of contract, and unless he loses every game in 2024, he will be there next year. The team has significantly shifted personnel, and a relatively difficult draw, paired with some injury misfortune, will probably go in favour of Beveridge even if they miss finals. At the same time, there is no way the club will extend him beyond next season. It sets up as a fascinating watch and has the potential to be great or end in a similar way to Adam Simpson. At least there was little blood spilt for Simpson's departure. The West Australian might have got him in the end with their jab, but most people appreciated his 11 years of service. He's declined to coach on the weekend, which is fair enough, but still got embraced by the Eagles fans while doing the coin toss. Over time, the second half of his tenure will get brought up, but whenever people speak of him, you know they will mention Adam Simpson, the AFL premiership coach.